him coming to the UK, he doesn't need armed security. He really doesn't need armed security. He's not, despite the five risks that he says he's vulnerable to, which you and I covered on the last podcast. None of those really put him above anybody else.
Hi, all. Kinsey Schofield here. Joining me today is one of the world's leading security and threat assessment experts, Will Geddes. You know him, you love him. With more than 30 years of experience in specialist security, counterterrorism, and high-risk protection, Will has advised clients around the world on some of the most complex security challenges imaginable. Will, thank you so much for being here today. And actually, I asked you to talk about something else, but we've had a little bit of breaking news over the last few days. So I was excited to see the evolution of this story. Prince Harry is still waiting for a decision on his security arrangements in the UK. And now we're learning why that process may have stalled. Harry, as we've discussed a million times before, has lost his automatic rights to armed police protection after quitting his job as a working member of the royal family and moving to California. But according to new reporting, his latest security review has been delayed as officials struggle with an increasingly stretched protection system, including, and this had never occurred to me before, but it's so obvious, the unreal task of providing security for 9 former prime ministers. Walk me through this, because you just had one quit, another one begins. It never occurred to me, as we joke about the evolving door of prime ministers, that it would be the government's job to continue to protect them after they leave, Will.
I know it's quite a hefty job. So, wow, lots of questions to start with, Kinsey. So I'll do my best. Firstly, thank you for inviting me back on again. It's always a pleasure. And it's always lovely to have nice messages from your kind followers who are very loyal to you, I can tell. So look, yeah, let's break this down to the fundamentals. So we know about RAVEC. Everybody knows about RAVEC when it comes to Harry. And RAVEC are the oversight group, which basically will deploy various different security measures to the protection of royalties and VIPs, and they're the executive committee. Then you've got underneath this the risk management board. Now, these are the guys who basically will put together the risk assessment on each individual that they're requested to review. Now, that could be ministers, it could be high-level politicians, it could be cabinet ministers. Get my teeth in today, but it really works on a couple of basics, which is capability plus intent, which will equal the threat and vulnerability, which equals the likelihood of that threat presenting itself, and the likelihood and impact, which is the risk that ultimately they have to address for each individual. And that process they have to do for everybody. Now, very, very astutely, you picked up on the fact that we've had a little bit of a carousel of prime ministers of late. 9, if we literally look at it, in the last 5 years.
Oh
I
my
mean, which is
God.
crazy. Yeah. So when you look at obviously the terms of your current president and most presidents, unless they do something especially naughty, they're going to be in for a 4-year term.
Yes.
So you have a special Secret Service contingent of protective officers who will be looking after the president for that entire duration. They may rotate out occasionally. I know a few former Secret Service guys who've worked on some of the presidential details, and they'll be given some time off. Now, each of those prime ministers, unlike in the United States for presidents, where they will have protection for life, so they'll have a Secret Service team provided for them for life.
Wow.
Over here in the UK, it's not quite as clear cut. So you have a situation where RAVEC will review it each year. They'll look at the personal circumstances of each of those former prime ministers. Are they still in the UK? Are they overseas? Are they in a mud hut in the middle of outer Mongolia? What sort of level of security are they going to need? And there are lots of different components to that security, not just executive protection, as you guys call it, or close protection, as we call it, bodyguards, as everyone calls it. For them, there's going to be residential security, there's going to be special escort group, there's going to be all sorts of other sort of lower level of security that each of these people have. Now, For the executive protection, the bodyguards, you're going to be looking at 15 officers per prime minister. So just for the number that we've got, we're looking at about 135 to, including our new prime minister who's come in, looking around about the 150 officers mark, which is a heck of a lot. And the other issue that you have with RASP, executive protection officers, is that they have had a very low intake of new officers coming in. And that's a sort of catalogue of aspects which have been influenced by various political cuts by the government to policing, but also individuals that have seen recent cases of firearms officers engaging with threats and then going through years and years of inquiries, which are horribly stressful, horribly traumatic, and is basically putting them in a position where they're going, look, if I look after Princess Kinsey and I have a threat that presents itself and I shoot that threat and I kill that threat, I may be going through an inquiry for the next 2, 3, 4 years
Wow.
just to explain me doing my job.
Mm, that's wild. This is unrelated to well, my show, but this is just my curiosity. Did Ann Whitcomb have somebody checking on her? She have any sort of protection, or were they doing any sort of analysis of her safety before she was murdered?
No, sadly not. I met Anne a few times, and she was a really sweet little old lady. I mean,
It
she was quite
was.
a little firecracker, very opinionated, stood by her values and her beliefs. But she was a very sweet little old lady who lived on her own in a tiny little house in Devon. So literally in the middle of nowhere. And for anybody who doesn't know Devon, for your US and for other sort of foreign national viewers, it's imagine the most remote part almost of your own countries. And that's where she lived. And she lived alone. She had a kitty cat, which obviously put her in a big mark. We spoke about cats for obvious reasons when I saw her. But you know, she was in a situation where this individual turned up. Our police authorities are being rather quiet about it. It is being aligned to terrorism, but that's another impact to the risk management board of other MPs outside of the inner circle, if you want, that they now have to start regarding as possible risks or individuals that could be targeted and could be deemed as vulnerable, like Anne was, for some lunatic to turn up with a hammer and kill.
Oh, it's absolutely it's a horrible story, and I'm watching that closely. Is this an administrative backlog or evidence that Britain's protective security infrastructure is like genuinely just overstretched?
A bit of both, Kinsey, a bit of both. So in terms of the capability, yes, there aren't enough officers. I know for a fact that the government or the Home Office are certainly going to the private sector to bring in more qualified, and I use that word very loosely, close protection officers. Now, I'll be careful what I say here, but there are certain aspects of quality that are not commensurate to the current and existing RASP officers. Certainly the ones that I know who are consummate professionals, extremely experienced. Some of the guys coming in, I'm not sure are necessarily to that level, which in itself presents its own issues. And certainly some of your viewers, Kinsey, may have seen some recent reports about the arguments of Nigel Farage receiving 5 million from a private donor, and a
Hmm.
vast majority of that going to his personal security. Now,
Wow.
Nigel Farage, the leader of the Reform Party, is probably one of the most divisive characters, political leaders out there. Although Zach Polanski, head of the Green Party, is certainly drawing enough fire, certainly recently, in terms of not being the most well liked. But
You know
Farage,
what? But he can hypnotise you to a bigger set of boobs. So God love him.
I'm
Not
trying my best.
he can't stand Zach Polanski, but go ahead, continue.
I'll just keep doing the bench presses.
Yeah.
I think I'll skip on that one.
Yeah, right.
But I mean, if we look at the bill for security as it stands by RASP for those former prime ministers, you're looking at a bill that's circa £2 million a year. So
Mm.
the bill currently stands for all of those prime ministers at about 24 and a half, 25 million pounds a year. And that's a heck of a draw, obviously, on funds from the Home Office to attributed to many ministers who aren't currently even, in practice, so to speak. So there is this key issue of all these other MPs in the wake of Anne Widdecombe's horrific murder that are now going, we need coverage. And Nigel, understandably, and I know Nigel, I've met Nigel a few times, he's a nice enough guy. He's been in a position where he's been given 5 million for his security, and he can choose the executive protection officers that he's using. I know that the guys he's got are very good and they're
Hmm.
very qualified. So rather than getting maybe a less than RASP level of executive protection that he is hoisted with. Ultimately, the Home Office go, here's your team, you take them, we go from there. Nigel can actually go, you know what, I can select. He can even bring someone like me in who can look at the team and select each of those candidates and say, yep, that guy passed muster, that one does, that one doesn't, that one does. So Nigel certainly is, he's probably the most targeted MP in the UK right
And can
now.
I just ask,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I'm asking this because I'm wondering if my audience is thinking this at the same time. Why can Harry not do that? Why can Harry not? Because Harry has claimed, although I don't believe he actually wants to, Harry has claimed that he is willing to pay for his own security. And the argument is because not everybody can roll in. That we, that would be crazy to say that people can just pay for this type of security. Your argument is Nigel has received the security assessments that say this is a person that is constantly under threat, and
Yep.
that's why he's in the position to handpick his team. Is that what you're saying?
No, no, no. What I'm saying is, and it's a good example, and I'll bring it back to Prince Harry or Harry Sussex, whatever he calls himself these days.
Harry
Um,
Markle.
Spare, I think Spare's still very good personally. Harry Markle, very good. The thing with Nigel is, yes, he could go through the RAVIC process. He could go through the risk management board process, but he's circumvented that. And
Oh,
he's doing
okay.
what Harry's doing right now, which is, Nigel's not sending a bill to RAVIC for his own personal security, which has been financed by a sponsor. So he's paying for his own security, which is exactly what Harry's doing right now. He's
And are
paying
they
for his own
armed? Are they
security.
armed?
No, they're not armed, and I'll come to that because this is another really weak argument that Harry has, which is
Thank you.
they need to be armed. They need to
Yeah.
be armed. You know, I Yeah, I'll come to that one. I'll just finish if I could
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
this one.
Yeah.
So to cover on this point, Harry's paying for his security. Nigel Farage, who is a serving MP of a leading political party here in the UK, who is more merited to have home Office issued security via RAVEC, is has decided, no, I'm not going to have the RAVEC provided. I'm going to pay for my own, and I'm going to get what I want and what I feel is necessary, and not be bound by anybody telling me what I should have or shouldn't have. I'm going to have what my own personal advisors will tell me I should have. Now, that's what Harry's got. He's got his own personal security. He's picking up the bill as well. But what Harry doesn't want to do is he doesn't want to continue paying for it. He wants to basically get free security when he comes to the United Kingdom. And he's not a serving royal. Even the Canadian police, when they first went to Canada, lifted their personal protection on him within a month of him actually arriving there. Now, has that stopped Harry and the Markle going to Colombia? They went there. They've been to Nigeria. They've been to
Ukraine.
Ukraine. Yeah. Now, I've been to all of those countries, and I would say, certainly in terms of Colombia, the risk was very high when he went there. It fluctuates. Colombia is renowned for kidnapping, but it's pretty much on the same level, I would say, now as Mexico, which is still pretty high, to be fair. But yes, he would need armed protection down there. Much easier to do. When I was down there, I was armed. Likewise in other locations. Nigeria is not one of the places that, I mean, I've got lovely Nigerian friends, just to be clear, but Nigeria is not a country I like to go to very often. The security and the risk there is pretty damn high. So he's been paying for all that security already. And we come back to this fundamental thing, Kinsey, which is if he gets security or he offers to pay for it, that opens up a huge Pandora's box of problems for every foreign national or VIP who goes, you know what, he's not a serving royal. He's not doing royal duties. He doesn't have a job. He just thinks he's important and he's coming to the UK and he has some money and he wants to throw it for royalty level protection and sovereign intelligence access. We've talked about that before. And ultimately, I'll pay for mine too.
Yeah, right. And then so all the gloves are off and anybody can do it. And that
Yeah.
just, there's rules in place for a reason. We're also hearing allegations that highly trained close protection officers are being pulled into ordinary police duties to plug staffing gaps elsewhere. If that's happening, how concerning is that? Aren't these incredibly specialized officers um, who can't be replaced overnight? Aren't they highly qualified and should be treated that way?
Yeah, again, it's down to the layers, and this is the concerning thing. So you've got the executive protection officer that's actually looking after the principal directly. Then you've got the residential security team. Then you've got the special escort group. You've got drivers. You've got all sorts of different levels, and depending on where the draw is or the need is, they will dilute what is necessary, but they will only dilute it against what they believe to be commensurate to the risk to that particular principal. Now, let's circle back to Anne Widdecombe. Anne Widdecombe, sweet little old lady. Yes, she was very vocal, but would she have been on the high end list of politicians that were not really in the front line to be targeted by an individual who drove a couple of hundred miles to get to her and then murdered her in her kitchen? No, she wasn't. And this is what sent a lot of people into a spin right now. And this is why the Risk Management Board, we're hearing in the press, they aren't able to address Harry's issue right now because they're having to take priority actions on people that are more justified to have potential security.
I mean, reading this entire article from the Mirror, this is from my friend Russell Myers, it makes you think the whole world doesn't revolve around you, bro.
No,
Like,
it doesn't.
I
But
mean,
but
you think you are so much more important than ultimately you are when you read this article where they're going over everything that's kind of overwhelmed the infrastructure. One source argues that pausing risk management boards because there is a backlog is completely counterintuitive. If demand is overwhelming the system, you increase resources rather than stop conducting assessments. How do you respond to that source that told the Mirror that?
okay, so I would say that's not necessarily the solution. Quite often, throwing money at the problem can be a solution, but in this instance, it's a far more precise intelligence gathering, aggregation, and then assessment process. So it's not something, again, if they tried to rush this, and all too often, sadly, in the world of security, when things are rushed, they generally will go wrong. Wheels start spinning off in different directions. Now, the people that actually act within the risk management board are very much anonymous. They are very key people that will be represented from the royal household, from the Home Office, from police, from the intelligence agencies. Even Harry, during his litigation, wasn't given or their identities were not disclosed to him. So he doesn't even know who they are. But you've got all these different people that give their own perspectives and they will draw their own fields towards that assessment, ultimately to deciding whether that gets escalated and pushed up to the bosses at Ravik to then turn around and say, okay, yeah, this person is merited security and to what level that security might be. The problem with Harry is he's kind of like the KFC of security in some regards. I mean, he wants a quick, digestible security. So when he turns up, and he has to give 28 to 30 days notice before he turns up, that he can have security. Now, with his schedule, with his itinerary, as we saw, he did very little. Megan and
And
the kids.
actually, I haven't talked about this on my podcast, but sorry to interrupt you,
Yeah,
but I do think I
please.
need to address it here on the podcast. He was so defeated by that Daily Mail loss that he, along with Megan, they did cancel several events that they had planned for the UK, which to me, I just thought, how selfish that you didn't get your way and you're in a bad mood. So now you're going to show up, or you're going to refuse to show up to a few of these charities and a few of these causes that have gone. You know that they tear the place apart when they know that a royal, even if he quit his
Oh
job,
yeah,
is going to
yeah.
walk through the door. So how selfish. So thanks for letting me throw that out there, but I hadn't
No, no,
got
no. It's a
an
really good point.
opportunity to talk about it yet.
No, it's a really valid point, Kinsey. I'm really pleased you brought that up for a couple of different reasons. The first of which is, have I used the word petulance before?
I bet you have.
I think I might have. So you're absolutely right. Now, I know from having done the advanced security and, to explain that in a close protection team, you'll have those that are actually with the principal all the time. Then you'll have the advance, and the advance is basically close protection guys who will go ahead of the principal before they arrive to make sure everything's good, everything's in the right shape. But the advance will have also been to that venue probably some days, if not weeks, if not months, depending on the level of that principal,
Mm.
to verify that that location is safe to go to in the first place. Now, that causes for venues, I know this because when I've walked into various places, I've said, look, we're guests, we're here, this is your home. We don't want to intrude, but we do need to make sure it's safe and secure for our principal to come to. And the more cooperation and collaboration you can give us, the better. And then we'll sit down with them, we'll look at the routes, we'll look at where we're going to debus the principals outside the vehicle, where the press pen's going to be so they can get all their fantastic photographs, where there will be small children, babies they can kiss the heads off, all the sort of stuff that you would standardly do on these sort of things. And they would have also got very excited because closer to the event, and I've seen this when I've gone back on revisits prior to a visit, you see them getting all excited and they've told all their friends and they've wheeled out their old elderly granny to come along and sit there and get an eyes on to Harry and Meghan. Then for that to be cancelled because he lost his fight in court and hadn't considered, and again, this is the arrogance of the man, hadn't considered that he might lose. And what would happen if he did lose? That he didn't just that he then cancelled all these well-being things. And then the second thing is, which again goes back to, do you remember we talked about Instagram and about them curating their own image and their own optics? Again, they've destroyed what could have been really good optics for them. You and I spoke about this last time, where they come to the United Kingdom, they kiss babies' heads, they shake old ladies' hands, and there seem to be really nice, genuine, kind people, and completely converse to this image that we have of them as being horrible, spoiled, petulant people. So them doing that is an absolute nightmare. And then you go to the security side of things, it's running the gamut of that itinerary going from one location to another, which may be because Harry thought he'd have his way. Because remember, one of the things that he said when he'd lost, obviously, his fight for royalty protection was he said that his father wouldn't speak to him because of all this security stuff.
Right. Exactly.
And he probably thought he would get some coverage and his own team were going to do it, but he came home with his own team. I think I'm guessing Meghan and the kids may have stayed at Althorp House. That's always possible. And I've been to Althorp House. Little one fact I think I mentioned, I went to Charlie Althorp and his wife's wedding, which is the first time I met Diana.
The first wedding, because he's had a few. He's had a few
He's had a
since
few.
then.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't know him. I knew the
Yeah.
wife.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, we're team her always. We're always team the other woman. I don't. I loved Karen Spencer, so I can't stand the archaeologist that has entered the chat. Enjoy your temporary housing at Althorp House is all I can say to the archaeologist. If
But it would have been a good place to stay, and it would have been
yeah,
a secure place. Having been, sorry, that was the relevance of me bringing it up, not just
yeah,
to name drop that I met Diana there.
yeah.
It's a good location to secure. If I was the security team, I'd be like, okay, great, this is a good place to hold them. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, I can see that too. Um, there's an obvious irony here. Harry spent years arguing that the current system doesn't adequately address the danger he faces. And now we're hearing that the wider protection apparatus itself may be underfunded and overstretched.
Yeah.
Does this revelation actually strengthen any part of Harry's argument? Or again, does it just make us sit back and go like, the world doesn't revolve around you. It's not all about you, buddy.
It's the latter. It's very much the latter. It really is. You are so far down the list of priorities for Ravek and the RMB, and you are not of importance. You're not a constant vulnerability here in the United Kingdom. You're living the life over in Montecito or wherever else it is you decide to jump on a plane to, obviously managing his carbon footprint beautifully, despite his
Exactly.
environmental challenges,
Yeah.
and his advocacy. But yeah, he's not a constant threat here. It's not like the number of people here who have been vocal about the trans community or vocal about Iran or vocal about a number of other areas. We've got some serious terrorism issues here in the UK. The vast majority of Islamic extremism, a very small proportion far right, but certainly the Islamic extremism angle, this impacts on pretty much every MP out there. I mean, after Anne Widdecombe's death, I actually got, after a murder, I got a number of calls, Kinsey, from a lot of people in the public eye who said, Will, do I really need to start being worried right now? And I said, okay, let's sit down. Let's look at what your pattern of life is right now. What have you got in place? What is there that we can do? What are the things that you can do to keep yourself a little bit safer, but also a little bit more situationally aware that if there's a bit more traffic on your Twitter account in the comments, is there anyone strange that's hanging around? I mean, there are lots and lots of different things one can look at to say, yeah, you might be under some sort of reconnaissance right now or not.
Yeah, that's terrifying. I mean, if resources are limited and Britain is protecting serving politicians, former
Yeah.
ministers who, you know, were voted in some cases in that position, and working members of the royal family, why should someone who quit receive automatic police protection every time he comes home? For, you know, it's not like he's been requested there. He
No.
typically is coming, and I think we discussed this at great length when I was there,
Hmm.
on like a PR tour. Like he's there to improve his own image, not necessarily to do the hard work that we see any of the above do, whether it's former prime ministers, working politicians, or a working royal.
Yeah, sorry, I had a little man here who was
No,
pestering me. So I bring him
never,
up.
never apologize. Never apologize.
Here comes the Lord.
The Lord. Oh my gosh, the
There he is.
cutest. So cute. I
He's
love
such a
it.
monkey. He's such a monkey. Yeah, I mean, look, I mean, let's go back to the fact that he hasn't got royal duties. He's not doing anything important. He's not doing anything for the royal family. He's not contributing to the economy. He's not doing stuff which ultimately is going to benefit the royal family. If anything, he's more of a hindrance. He's more of an impact than anything else. So he's not in a situation where he has value to bring that makes it justifiable for Ravik to deploy resources to support. And let's go back to the point. He's struggling. I'll let him go. Let's go back to the issue about being armed. Now, I've been armed in lots of different countries myself, Kinsey, when I've been operating around the world. And some places, absolutely, it's a necessity. So when I was in Iraq, when I was in Afghanistan, when I was in Somalia, Sudan, all sorts of places like that, absolutely. But there are places in the world where I've been where I haven't needed to be armed because if I've planned the operation appropriately in terms of the route management, the vehicles we're using, the locations we're going to, then, ultimately you can get away without necessarily being armed. I think being armed isn't an absolute go-to for every single operation. And any executive protection officer that says, yes, you should be armed in every situation has not worked in enough sort of spectrum of locations and theatres of operation.
Yeah.
So him coming to the UK, he doesn't need armed security. He really doesn't need armed security. He's not, despite the five risks that he says he's vulnerable to, which you and I covered on the last podcast. none of those really put him above anybody else that's actually probably more prominent, and Ravek and R&B need to consider first.
And I will just say that we do believe Invictus is an important cause when he's there
Yep.
to promote Invictus, but he's never fully there to promote Invictus. I mean, he was there to kick off the 1 year to Invictus the last time he was there, but it became the Harry circus, all about security, all
Mm.
about, will they, won't they meet with the king? If he was truly there and dedicated to promoting a cause that you and I both believe in, the Invictus Games,
Yep.
then we would give him the benefit of the doubt. But he can't get out of his own way. And it became totally self serving in his pity party between complaining about the UK justice system letting him down to why isn't he getting the security he wants, to the back and forth regarding his father. It overshadowed the Invictus Games. And if I were Invictus, I'd be really unhappy with the way that it all turned out.
They are, Kinsey. I can tell you that they are. I've spoken to a few people. I won't name names, but I've spoken to a few people connected to it. And they felt like the message of what Invictus is about, which is, wounded veterans competing in these games, that their message has been diluted because of Harry and Meghan, because for absolutely the reasons you've just mentioned, it becomes the Harry and Meghan show, and all the publicity and the photography and any of these types of events, this having been a correspondent, a journalist, that they want to fill pages, whether it be in hard copy or digital, for any particular event. And it's going to be something controversial. It's going to be something, a bit crazy, or something which is going to spark the interest for their viewers. Now, the problem with Harry and Meghan is all about them sort of kissing and holding hands and her cuddling him and all this kind of nonsense, which, yeah, fine. I'm not averse to a little PDA myself when I've got a partner, but it's so unnecessary when it comes to that, because it's not about you guys. It's about the veterans, and it's about furthering the support for them, because the Invictus Games has so many different offshoots of sponsors, of charities, of all sorts of things, which are going to help the community as a large, rather than just the games itself. I don't think he's going to come next year. My personal feeling is, or if he does, I don't think Meghan's necessarily going to come, because, well, I mean, you never know. They might be divorced by then.
Well, all I have to say is the fallout from Sennabale is really giving us the potential template of what we're seeing with Invictus, because
Mm.
your sources are saying exactly what my sources are saying in leadership, that Harry is a distraction, and they don't see the benefit in him as much, with all the distraction he creates through his behavior. And again, I'm tap dancing because I don't want to give away too much too, and accidentally say something that gives away my source. But Harry has argued in the lead up to the UK trip specifically that his wife and children cannot safely return to Britain without the level of protection he wants. Well, now they have, based
Mm.
on the system as you understand it, and as you explained it earlier, the 28 days notice. Is that a fair characterization, or is there an important distinction between I don't have an automatic, armed guard, and Britain cannot keep my family safe?
There's two brilliant elements you brought up there, Kinsey. The first of which is something that you and I covered on the last podcast, which was about the fact that if he still came, because remember, it was a maybe no, coming to the UK, that if he did come and if he brought Meghan and the kids, and that was without RASP protection, then he's already nullified his argument
Mm.
for why he needs to have it, because he's now come to the UK, this terribly scary, frightening, violent location, and he's managed to come over with his own personal security without RASP protection, still managed to meet with the king. I think it was more a protest action by or statement by Meghan and the kids to not go and meet with the king.
No, they did.
I
They were there.
Oh, did they? Did they
Yeah.
meet with the king?
So
Well,
everybody,
even
so
even
everything
more
was,
so.
yeah. So we saw no
Yeah,
pictures. They were able to get in and out without having their photos taken. The day
yeah.
of the tea, it was like a less than an hour long tea. Um, there was an event at Highgrove for Chanel. So there
Yeah.
were cars in and out, and Harry and Meghan, just looked like they were with the crowd, and they
Yeah.
snuck in and out. And so it does, to your point, prove you can do it because you did it.
Without needing rasp.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So he's now diminished unless something really drastic happens now. And I can't think of anything that would have to, which would happen, which would be probably Islamic State bringing out specific videos in on their sort of unauthorized or their authorized channels like Telegram to say Prince Harry and Meghan are going to get it. I think that he's now nullified his argument for having any RAS protection moving forward because his trip went without event. And if they went to Highgrove, and I know Highgrove is a very easily securable environment. And the only risk would be from wherever he was departing, traveling to Highgrove. But once beyond the gates of Highgrove, absolutely fine.
All right. We've discussed this in the past, and you've kind of you've said like very firmly, no, I don't see it happening. Harry trying to get in with Andy Burnham and co. and trying to change some minds now that there's a new administration. He reportedly had a good relationship with former Home Secretary Yvette Cooper, and he previously wrote directly to the new one, Shabana Mahmood,
Yeah.
requesting a risk assessment. So I know if I asked you, can he change Shabana Mahmood's mind, that you would say that that's not happening, especially after these reports about the system being overwhelmed.
Yeah.
However, I'd like your opinion. How uncomfortable is it when someone seeking protection also has this kind of access to senior politicians overseeing the system? Does the fact that the Mirror reports that Harry is going to continue to rally the Home Secretary, that was I think 2 weeks ago that I sent you that article.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does reports like that, does it make you uncomfortable? Does it bother you that he has that kind of access, or is you know trying to use that privilege?
hmm Yeah, I no, doesn't bother me, Kinsey, because the people at RMB and Rabec will just be. I won't do the hand signals, but I'm sure the viewers can guess what those hand signals might be. Might
Right?
be one finger on the hand that is
Or two.
protruding. Yeah,
Yeah.
or two maybe. Yeah, it won't make a blind bit of difference. Even with Shabana Mahmood, Yvette Cooper, she's gone. She's history. She has no sway whatsoever. Shabana Mahmood. I doubt she could talk to them and say, "Hey guys, can you do us a favor?" And they're going to go, "No, we're going to carry on doing what we want to do."
Yeah,
And
because it was
remember,
it was her in December of 2025 that told
yeah,
Harry she would get him the new risk assessment. And obviously she doesn't have that much power because he's in the back of the line.
yeah. No, I mean it's different in the other parts of the world. So I mean, if I was in, say, I'm just trying to think off the top of my head. If I have, and I do have contacts into some of the government agencies and possibly some politicians as well, or royal families, not in this country, but elsewhere, that you can talk to them, and they have a very different kind of culture where you can ask for planes, jets, whatever it might, helicopters, armed escorts, all sorts of things like that. You can do that. But here in trusty old Blighty, no, it wouldn't make a blind bit of difference. All it will serve to do is just irritate everybody. Again, him. I mean, and Shabana Mahmood may very well have gone, yes, of course, Harry, I'll have a word with the RMB and Ravik. But as soon as he's walked out the door, she's gone, right, I'll delete that message. I won't be doing anything beyond there.
What safeguards should exist to ensure these decisions remain completely independent?
Well, this is the joy of the composition of the RMB, that you've got people from various different branches. So you've got the royal household, you've got MI5, you've got counterterrorism, you've got the protective unit within the Metropolitan Police. You've got all these different people who are going to come together. It's like a jury in a major sort of court case, and it's going to be the jury with a foreman who are going to basically all put their opinions across to each other, when they break from the courtroom and say, yeah, I think he's guilty. And the other one going, no, I don't think he is. And the same will be applied in terms of weighing up who they have as a majority in terms of believing that the risk is sufficient enough that he needs to have or be merited the cost of that security. And he may argue, well, it's only occasionally. I'll come to the UK once a year. Well, they'll go, well, you did recently, and there wasn't a problem, was there?
Yeah, right. Yeah,
Yeah,
so you're saying that the safeguards are really the fact that it is a collection of
yeah.
individuals. It's not because
Not just one person. No,
yeah,
no.
because
Yeah.
Sir Clive Alderton has resigned, who is, one of the king's most trusted advisors.
Hmm.
And Harry's pretty scathing about him in Spare. And some commentators have pointed to Sir Clive's role on Ravik. But I've recently said to Page Six that I thought it was important to remember that Ravik is not a one-man operation.
Yeah.
These are made collectively under an established framework. So it's
Yeah.
overly simplistic to suggest Alderton alone stood between Harry and the outcome he wanted when it came to his security review.
Well, and also, Harry being as vocal and demonstrative and, childish about certain people and his dislike of them, or, the fact, I mean, him turning around and saying, my dad's not going to talk to me because of this security stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think King Charles would have been particularly happy hearing that,
Right.
because, it doesn't paint him in the best of pictures. But yeah, Harry poisoning the well of individuals that could have influence. And I mean, it's like any of us. I mean, if I know that person that's being defamed or, derogatory comments are being made about, and they say, you know what, that Harry character has just been saying the worst things about me in the press. I'll be like, well, you're my buddy. Don't worry. I'll stick it to him behind the scenes.
Right. It's true. No, if we are just playing hypothetical as I get ready to let you go because you've been so gracious with your time. Thank you so much.
Anytime. You got as
If
much
we
time
are
as you want.
if we are playing hypothetical, could a home secretary actually intervene in a meaningful way? Because that is what's being reported, that Harry is going to continue to rally the home secretary. If Harry gets the answer he wants after lobbying ministers, wouldn't that immediately raise questions about political interference and what's supposed
Yeah.
to be an intelligence and risk-based process?
Absolutely. It's the perfect oxymoron. I mean, and also it would show the integrity of the Home Office, that they could be persuaded by a third party to influence a particular system and construction which is in place already and is serving a perfectly and is fit for purpose and delivers on what it needs to do, and safeguarding the taxpayers' money and safeguarding the individuals that merit having that protection. So yeah, this is why I think Shabana Mahmood may pay lip service to Harry and say, yeah, of course I'll look into it. But, literally the moment he's walked out of the room, she'll be on to the next thing.
Mm.
Because, it would just show her as being able to be influenced. And do you want a Home Secretary that is easily influenced? That it shows all sorts of levels of questionable integrity.
Yeah, weakness. Strip away the royal drama, the family feud, and the politics just for a second.
Mm.
If Prince Harry were simply presented to you as a client with his current threat profile, which you've observed, public visibility, and lifestyle, what protection would you actually recommend when he comes to Britain?
Okay, how long you got?
All the time in the world for you.
Okay, so the first thing is going to be, well, there's a couple of really key things here. I mean, there's some very prominent people I've turned down, Kinsey, because they're not the right
And you've
personalities.
literally told me that you would fire Prince Harry as a client before.
I could do. Yeah, I
Yeah,
could do. I mean, I would sit down. I mean, it would probably be because of Meghan, not necessarily because of him, because I would
really.
hope, having been former military, he would have some understanding, and certainly having had, royalty protection before he met the Markle, that he would be understanding of the restrictions and the impositions that protection will have and security will have. So the first thing I would want to do is sit down, and I do this with my clients, even if they've had security before delivered by whoever, I don't care. And I will sit down and say, hey, these are Will's rules. These
Yeah.
are the rules that you need to follow by, and we need to agree to right now before we do anything. And if we can't agree to those rules, I am not your guy. I'm not the guy who can protect you. I'm going to want to make your life as liberal and as free as I possibly can. But my job is fundamentally to make sure you live and you
Mhm.
survive and you don't get harmed. Because if you do get harmed and you do get killed, who's going to catch the blame for it?
And you
So
specifically told me the reason you would fire him is because we theorized that he sometimes puts himself in dangerous positions to justify his threat, to
yes,
justify what he claims. Why are you in Ukraine? You're why? What a value do you bring to Ukraine?
yeah,
In my
exactly.
opinion, he was there so he could be like, look, well, I'm in Ukraine. I'm under threat. I need your help. And that's why you said that you would fire him as a client if you felt like that's what he was doing.
Yeah, I mean, he hasn't helped himself, not in terms of his argument for needing to have security. Putting yourself, it's like anonymity is the best security.
Stop
And
posting
privacy,
pictures of your beach vacation on Instagram, Megan.
absolutely, and Portugal and
Yes.
wherever else that he's been going. I mean, it really comes down to privacy doesn't justify necessarily, or publicity doesn't necessarily align to security. So the fact that he wants loads of publicity, you pay for the security that you have to have. I've got some clients who are really well-known names, and people will see them on their movie screens, who are super private, super private. They do their thing for the press, they do their thing for their fans. But other than that, they keep themselves so low key. And therefore, as a direct result, the security that they have to have is very low key also. So if you want to go out there and you want to grandstand, you're going to have to need to have a lot of security. Now, planning the trip coming to the UK, the first thing will be the schedule. We'll be looking at the itinerary. Where are they looking to go? What are they looking to do? I mean, with the recent visit and after his loss against the Daily Mail and them subsequently cancelling all those appointments and visits that they were going to have, the security team probably would have in equal breaths gone, thank God for that. But secondly, also, we work really hard to plan these routes, these trips, and everything else, and to zero avail. Schedules will change, and things will pop up, new events or events being cancelled for whatever reason. So you're used to that. But if they cancelled a significant number of events. I think the security would be a bit fed up with that, but it doesn't matter. We're still getting paid. We're mercenaries. We do what we want, or we do what is necessary. So I think the key thing, Kinsey, before any of that would be to sit down and see whether they want to play ball. And if they wanted to play ball, then it can be done. I've taken people to places that they shouldn't have really gone to, but they've agreed to the level of security that they needed to have.
And to your point, they don't really listen to anybody based on what we've seen PR wise, career wise. Doesn't sound like they're listening to anyone's advice. So that would probably be a very brief working relationship, Will Geddes.
Yeah, I think it would be Kinsey. I think it would be. I think my gut feeling on it is it would be more the Markle than it would be Harry.
Right.
I think Prince William and Princess Catherine, they would be a joy. I just, you know what? I've been doing this over 30 years now. I obviously started as a small child, but
Yes.
I
I exited the womb.
yeah, straight into the job, straight into a suit. And you know what? I have a pretty good feel on people,
Mhm.
and terrible choice in girlfriend sometimes, but hey ho. Uh,
Jesus. Well,
yeah, but as long as it's in the work, then that's fine.
yeah.
But all kidding aside, there's been some good ones. But the long and the short of it is, I get that feeling Prince William, Princess Catherine would be a joy. I think they would be really sweet. I think they'd be understanding. I think they'd be more human. The
Hmm.
problem with the Markles, if we want to call them that, is that it's all about show and glow.
Right. Oh, too
Was I
true.
oversharing there, Kinsey? If I was, I'm
No,
sorry.
no, no. I just thought it was hilarious. It was a very raw and authentic moment from you. So we appreciate that. All
Ouch,
right. Well,
ouch. I'll wait for the hate in the comments.
you were one of the things or one way that I love to keep up with you is through your Instagram. And you don't just comment on the royal family, you do commentary worldwide on very serious issues. So, one thing I would suggest to my audience, because I caught them talking about you in the chat during a different guest and how much they
Okay.
missed you. And so,
Oh,
one thing I just wanted to say to my audience, and I heard you, and I immediately messaged Will and said, hopefully, you'll come back soon because they missed you in the chat. Is follow Will on Instagram at the real Will Geddes on Instagram.
thank you.
And everyone should go give you a follow so they can keep up with you and see what you're talking about and what's on your radar. And then you've been doing these hot takes too.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
you're just something comes up and you'll be like, hey, I was just thinking about this and I wanted to get
exactly.
it on your radar. So that's also
Yeah,
worth
so
seeing.
yeah, I did one quite recently on WhatsApp because I wrote a book, as you know, as well on sort of protection online. But yeah, WhatsApp, people don't realize necessarily some of the weaknesses on there. So, thank you for giving me the shout out on that. Yeah, if something comes across my mind, because there's usually it's a bit of a soup up there. But if anything comes to mind of a security issue or a risk, which I think people need to be prepared for, and what steps they can take, then I'll put it up as a hot take.
Love it. All right. Well, go follow Will on Instagram. He's a joy. And thanks so
Thank
much
you.
for watching. Agree with us, disagree with us. Let us know in the comments below. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share this video with a friend. And as the security saga continues, because Prince Harry's beating it to death,
Oh
Will
yeah.
Geddes will be back to give
Thank you.
us all of his expertise and to share that with us. So I know that the audience was very happy to see you again. So thank you so much for spending some time with me today.
Thank you. It's always an honor, Kinsey. I always love chatting to you, and I love your supporters, as you know.
I do. They love you back. Bye, guys.